this is the one that was such an anomaly that I could even on camera.
Did anyone get that working, the white one?
Oh, it's working. I realized that it's working. You know how I realized that it's working? Because I realized a day later, but I saw it from
Exactly.
the side. Hello and welcome to Stationery Test Drive, where every week we take the pens you use every day and some of the things that you do not, and we do fun things with them. I'm Vishal.
I'm Samir.
This is Minjal, and today we're looking at the Brustro Metallic Brush Pens. It's a set of 10 metallic brush pens.
They have Japanese nibs, they're opaque, water-based, odorless, xylene-free, flea-free, even, indelible ink. And we have a bunch of them here in shades of everything, including white. Now, brush pens are, in some ways, they're those kind of, it's like a sports car where you think you want it, they're beautiful, they look great, you think, yeah, I'm going to get a brush pen and I'm going to turn into a painter, but with none of that messy stuff. And then you use them and you find out that they're not actually that easy to use. These are no exception in the way they're used. They have these brush tips which you can use even on their sides. Now, if you are paying attention to the video, you will realize that we have come across our first problem with the Brustros in that this is supposed to be gold. And I know you should always believe in your soul, but that does not quite look like gold to me. Does it look like gold to any of you?
It does not on that paper. And I think the thing that I discovered as I started playing around with it is that these pens change drastically based on what you're using them on.
Uh-huh. Now, we might as well get the tip jokes out of the way.
Yes, that's not gold either. That's green.
This is almost green. And that's...
Well, there is a green. So what does the green look like?
Well, it looks
not
more green than the gold does, but the gold also kind of looks green. Now, this is the one that was such an anomaly that I could even on camera.
Did anyone get that working, the white one?
Oh, it's working. I realized that it's working. You know how I realized that it's working? Because I realized a day later, but I saw it from the side.
That's what I came across too. I drew this on the cover of a book.
Okay.
And I thought, this pen isn't working. And
I hope that's showing through.
A day later, it was white.
Yeah. And look, there it is. It's a magic trick. Maybe they should call these the magic metallic brush pens because, unfortunately, as artists, we kind of want to know what we're putting down when we're putting it down. I'm sure there are ceramicists and other people who are scoffing at us right now saying, you only know until after it's out of the kiln and on somebody's shelf.
Yeah, and this is very much reminding me of putting something in the kiln. Look, it's like slowly forming a white.
Yeah.
On camera, live.
Yeah, and maybe we'll have to come back to this in a day when we take our B-roll shots and see how white it is. But right now it's a chalky grey on the black. I can sort of see it almost like a water stain on the white. Yeah, these are weird pens and I guess you could call that gold. I mean, that's a decent enough blue. It's not dry yet.
I don't know if you guys tried this out, but I think the thing I have realized is that while they say that it can be used on a variety of...
what is this? It's a grey? That's not a grey.
Yeah, it is meant to be a grey. It's quite a dark grey though.
Okay.
So while they say that it can be used on a variety of surfaces, I think that it reaches its sort of its glitter and its shine only on particular surfaces.
Right.
So this is a smooth art paper I'm using it on, and again, yes, it's getting grey after a while. So I'm guessing the xylene-free pigment that the solvent that they're using is something quite wet and strange that takes a while to dry.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I found. Because this is water-based, maybe that's the reason. The water kind of really gets absorbed into paper very quickly. And what I found is that if I'm using it on any paper that's fairly absorbent, and both these are, in spite of this one being smooth, it is a fairly absorbent paper. It just never reaches that shine level on an absorbent piece of paper. But if you find, which is why I tried it on the cover of a sketchbook, which is kind of a coated, plastic coated kind of thing.
Right.
And there it shines perfectly. So this pen is very dependent on the surface that you're using it on.
It's one of those. It's like those pens that you see celebrities using to do their autographs. Where it's just like it's on a glossy 8x10 and it's just like it's like a golden thing. Yeah, I mean let's forget the pigment for a second. What is it like to use these? Because the brush pens I've used, honestly, the brush pens I've used have longer brush tips. Especially the Japanese ones. This one's kind of
these are strange in that they're kind of like a marker tip, but then a sort of marker nib, the felt nib, but then with a brush tip.
So the way I like to use a brush pen, and at least test a brush pen, is by starting with the smallest line that I can get from the tip and then pushing it down from the top to see what I can get. And this is not a huge range of motion. Honestly, it reminds me of old graphics tablets on the computer where the pressure curve is not as functional as I would like. So yes, it's not brilliant as a calligraphy tool. So why doesn't our resident calligraphist show us what she's done?
So many names. So I actually faced all the problems that you all have discussed so far. I used the Clairefontaine black textured paper. You were not talking about papers, but the paper really is excellent. It's 160 GSM. It says 160. This feels like 160.
We should cover it at some point.
And the pen, when I tried on this paper, it appears chalky. It's not metallic. And, it has a grey tinge to it. But I realized all the colors, they just leave behind like a grey coat. I don't know. Is that because the ink
I suppose that's supposed to be the metallic side of it. And if maybe it shows up on camera where it kind of fluoresces almost, it does not really show that much in person. And I think that's one of the problems. Maybe in person, it's not a great looking thing. But these are your experiments. Show us your other one.
So I tried the same pen, the same coat on white paper just to show the difference. So here you can see the metallic color a little more clearly.
A bit clearer.
Bit clearer, but also very
uneven.
Yeah, there's it's kind of blotchy. You would think that this pen was almost failing in some ways. And I know we've been kind of negative about this, but we have tried other metallic pens. We've tried Poscas. We've tried...
I've tried the Zig Kuretake metallic markers. They're fantastic.
Right. And clearly when you want some kind of effect, that's a metallic pen. You want something that is going to deliver something special. And so far, it's not delivering something special on the textural front or even on the line quality front.
So as a lettering artist, I don't really use brush pens a lot. Because you have to have a little flexibility to use pens for lettering. So if you try to do more structured writing, and the tip on this particular pen is they say that it is a combination of hard and soft tip, but this is flexible to the end where you can't control it.
It's not flexible enough. I can see that what they mean by the soft and hard tip. It's sort of between the Japanese brush pens I've used and between also the Fudenosuke pens, which we have covered.
Yeah,
before.
so I really enjoyed using the Tombow. Also because the tip is not as wide. Is that
it's a longer,
it's more like a brush in that case.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, as a calligrapher, you had that experience. As an illustrator, I used it quite sparingly after a few tests on rough paper, and this is what I ended up with. Now,
it doesn't look like there are any problems in this.
See,
Where are
but
the
that's
problems?
because
but that's because
he's used it for what I think we are all figuring out it's best for, which is only for embellishment.
Right.
for accents and embellishment, because the majority of the inks on this are my trusty, by now 10-year-old, ratty, very overused Sakura water brush that has been just loaded with Sumi ink for the better part of 10 years. I've not been kind to it or gentle to it, but on a decent smooth paper, that's what you get. That's the Sakura as well in the grays, in the washes. The only place where these Brustros came in are in all the colored bits, the gold bits, which don't really look gold to me, the purple and the texture. And yes, in these belts, I'm used to, not used to, but we have seen the heights of this. We've seen the Poscas, which are acrylic markers, and in fact, there is a Posca gold metallic one which I use,
Which we did use,
and which is much more vibrant, much more gold-like. This one has, even after a day, is just like a dull brown. Really, it's not even a gold. It does not fluoresce at any angle for me. And yeah, in these larger bulky areas, which is why I brought up the Posca, the texture of the pen is very apparent. The texture of the stroke you're putting down. And I tried it thin, I tried it in two passes, two coats. It was still kind of the same. So unlike a Posca, the Posca really gives you a very clean, flat layer, especially after a while. Maybe not when it goes down. Whereas this one gets even more textured after it dries.
Yeah.
Which is the opposite. And that you may or may not want that. Maybe you want this kind of, you can lean into this texture. I was, after like a bit of my pushing around, I said, okay, let me just do it vertically so that it doesn't look like I completely messed up.
Right.
And that's how I achieved all this. Again, the fine tip is not good enough to do, and maybe this is better when they're brand new, but if they have such a small tolerance for, life of when the tip is usable, again, it's maybe not worth.
You can't do any hairline strokes with this pen at all. You can do that with the Tombow. You can get really fine, thin lines.
You can see the thinnest line that I could get is here, and even that has these kind of these what some illustrators and digital illustrators call shoelace ends, in that they sort of bulge and then they taper quickly, which is a problem with some digital styluses when they go into a thing. And I never expected that on a physical medium, actually. In physical mediums, you feel like you have more control, that you have more analog kind of.
Right.
Yeah. Samir, you also did an illustration this time.
Yeah, and I came across pretty much the same issues you've all been facing. I went even deeper into trying to cover large areas with it. And here you can really see what the problem is.
So you've used a colored paper and not a black one and not a white one. So we've done a nice spread here.
So I tried to go for really large areas, and yes, I tried to keep the stroke direction even, so that, because I started to see that it is forming this texture, and I even tried to use the texture in some cases.
That is the only good use of that I've seen so far.
From what I can figure, there's the problem of all of these papers being quite absorbent. And what that does seemingly is that the base of the nib is giving out the color, and the tip of the nib is giving out the shine. And that's the texture that you come across. So wherever you see the shiny line is the tip of the nib, and the
pigment
part that's closer to the body of the pen is where the pigment comes in, and that's why you get these streaks. So there's almost something about the metallic bits and the pigment not being evenly distributed in the nib. Somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just something that they need to work on. I think this is the first time we've been so down on something since maybe the carpenter's pencils, the infamous 4B6B.
Honestly, I think in this case, it's very much a question of maybe we are just not using it to
in the right
what
way.
It's best used to be.
Right.
I mean, what it's best made for.
Yeah. I mean, we are Stationery Test Drive, not Stationery Comprehensive.
Exactly.
Exhaustive.
I think the problem with this pen for us, and it's not a problem with the pen, is that we tend to look at all stationery as comprehensive, as you said. We want to take that one piece of stationery and do the whole piece with it, or everything with
But as much of it as we can with it.
And that's what I've tried to do. That's what Minjar has tried to do. In some ways, you have solved that by using a Sumi ink for what that's best at.
Yes.
And then using this purely for embellishment.
Yes. A, it was because I didn't have a black one on hand. And B, because I knew I just would not be able to get any kind of fine detail on this. So...
Also, I think there is also just an issue of what kind of pen this is. We have been comparing it to the Poscas and things like that, and these are not the same kind of pen at all. The Posca is very much a paint pen. It is an opaque, pigmented medium that just gets spread by what looks like a pen. This, on the other hand, is a very old school felt tip pen with the pigment, with the dye kind of soaked into the nib.
Right.
So it has its limitations compared to something like a Posca or something like a jelly roll, which sort of just has a medium that sits on top of the paper.
Well, it does have some things you can lean into texturally and pattern-wise that are almost a side effect of that.
Yeah, and as I said, more importantly, I think we have used it on paper which is maybe not its strength. It could be that it works better on hard surfaces.
So what you're saying is that we need to become celebrities, print up a bunch of glossy 8x10s and exclusively use this to sign our names on it.
Exactly. It's what everyone should do.
Yes. And in this age of everyone being a celebrity for, I don't know, not even 15 minutes, 15 tweets, we need to update that saying. I think we are done with testing this thing out to our needs and wants.
So what I would say is that it does have its uses. It is not a set that you should use as your only coloring medium, because yes, there is sort of it's also about the color selection. All of their colors, because they're going for the more metallic look, have this sort of grey tone to them. None of them are extremely bright. So if that works for you and it's what you're going for, it might be a good set. If you're working on harder surfaces where the pigment kind of can sit on top, I think it might work for you. The only thing that I can surely say that these pens are not good at is that maybe they do not last a long time.
Right. One or two of us were already dry, and these aren't...
Because the set we have is not brand new. It's not something that we picked up right now. In fact, it was gifted to us.
Yes, so this was actually gifted by my sister, Kashni. So thank you for the gift, Kashni. And Brustro, as a brand, I really love their, watercolor papers, their acrylic papers.
Yeah, we all have their sketchbooks.
Yeah, it's a great brand, but maybe, as Sameer and Vishal have discussed, there is something, that is maybe the medium, that we've used is probably not what Brustro intended, it to be used for. And maybe kids, are like taking ceramic mugs and painting.
Maybe it works great on those kind
them,
of things. But for sure, the thing we can say is that these pens are something you should probably buy and use immediately and not hold on to for too long.
Yeah, there's no way to like prime or reprime or make dry pens work again in this case.
Exactly.
Unlike the Poscas, which have that handy little press down, but the Posca is more of a space age applicator than a pen, like you said. I think we're done with our test drive for this week. It was not the most enjoyable one for us, but we enjoyed the work. I think I liked putting this stuff down, and if nothing else, it'll make me want to go and try this kind of thing with other things like the Posca.
And sometimes, we've said this before, sometimes it's good to struggle with a medium because it pushes you to do things you would not with something you're familiar with.
Well, you should get more familiar with us. Collectively, we are Inky Memo, and we have many more stories about stationery and tools and the history of art and the culture that comes from the tools that we make. So follow the links on screen and in the description below. Sign up for the Inky Memo newsletter. Follow us on social media where we put up all of these works as well as the rest of the things we do. And every week here on YouTube, we will try out more things, successfully, unsuccessfully. But whatever it is, we hope you are there to join us for all of that and more. Until then, I'm Vishal.
I'm Samir.
This is Minjal.
And be metal or something. I don't know. That's a thing they do.